This right here is exactly what you want to see.
Ooh, there we go. That one slacked it. That's a big one. That is a big one. Big old girl.
What I feel is the #1 most important thing to go out and win these tournaments is when fishing for big fish, you need to... What is up, MFers? I'm excited for the video today. Got the old Pahonix in tow right back there behind me. I don't know if you can see that, but got the boat hooked up, and today we are heading out to a lake where Zark and I have a tournament this upcoming weekend. And I've been getting a ton of questions and a ton of good feedback from you guys on all my tournament videos lately. This has been probably my most successful year tournament fishing that I think I've ever had. I think we've won 5 or 6 of the 8 or 9 tournaments that we've fished this year, which has been absolutely awesome. One question that keeps coming up is you guys want to know how to prepare for a tournament, or what exactly we're doing that's making a difference in these tournaments to help us catch more fish. So that is exactly what we're going to do today. I'm going to go out and kind of share some juicy tips on my mindset when I'm out there pre-fishing, that if you guys fish tournaments personally, I think they're absolutely going to be tips that help you guys go out and catch bigger fish to help you win those tournaments. And if you don't tournament fish, it's just flat out going to help you go out and have more successful days on the water. Catch you guys at the lake. All right, boat launch, ready to go rip some. Hot, sunny, high skies, windy today. I'm excited. This should be good conditions to go catch some fish. Before I forget, MF for the day is right down there below. If you guys want to be MF for the day, have your comment featured. Very, 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 very simple. All you gotta do, drop a comment below and be a subscriber. That is it. Hit the subscribe button right now. We're featuring a comment every single video, and we make a lot of videos, so you're probably gonna see your comment in the near future. So before we start fishing and hopefully going to find some fish that are gonna help us win this tournament this upcoming weekend, I need to tell you guys very simply and honestly what I feel is the most important thing you need to think about mentally before you even start your tournament. So when we set out to fish these local tournaments, we are in it for one thing and one thing only, and that is to win the tournament. A lot of these local tournaments are $50 to $150 entry fee. We don't have very big lakes, lakes up to 1,000 acres, so really anything over like 40 boats isn't even possible. So in our minds, it does us no good to get 3rd, 4th, 5th, or even 2nd place, because a lot of times those are only paying out $100 to $300, which might seem great, but when you're paying a $100 entry fee, plus you got boat gas, truck gas, lodging a lot of times, all the baits and tackle, the wear and tear that goes into your gear, at the very best, if you're not winning these tournaments, you are breaking even. And honestly, we're super competitive, so we want to win the tournaments for that reason too. So the main way you win these tournaments is rocket science. You gotta catch big fish. I know that's not groundbreaking material, but what I feel is the #1 most important thing to go out and win these tournaments is when fishing for big fish, you need to keep in mind, big fish want to live deep. Big fish feel safer out offshore and deeper water. They love that solitude, and it doesn't matter if the deepest part of your lake is 100 feet deep or 7 feet deep. If you have good offshore cover and structure and bait, you will find your biggest fish and your tournament winning fish out offshore. Okay, as I sit here and edit this video, I'm realizing I need to go more into depth about what I'm trying to say here. So these bigger fish, i.e. the older fish and the fish that it's gonna take to win a tournament, the biggest size class fish of that area, everything in their entire life, every outside influence dictates where they hold and what part of the lake they're gonna be in and when they're going to eat that specific day. These fish are constantly changing and evolving based on the types of areas they're getting fished for at, the baits that people are using to fish for them, and the presentations of which the fishermen are trying to catch them at each specific spot. All these factors make these fish that are bigger and older and have survived these previous experiences want to gravitate towards specific areas of the lake where they're not getting as much pressure and where they feel less susceptible to the danger of predators like humans, obviously, but also birds and bigger fish as well. To add to that, biologically, these fish change mentally in where they like to hold and what type of cover they like to hold, from when they're little fry and smaller fish where they like to bunch up on the shore. They're not as mature at picking off their targets, so they use a lot of these little ambush points and grass and hide from predators and grass and such, to when they're a little bit older and they can use their size, their speed, their explosiveness to overtake their prey by sitting behind offshore cover and, most importantly, structure. Now, like I always tell you guys, there's no truce or facts in bass fishing. It's always an ever ongoing experiment with a lot of anomalies mixed in. But one thing that consistently seems to hold true and why we've had a lot of success in these tournaments this year is that these large tournament winning bass, if the situation presents itself with the proper cover and the proper bait fish, greatly prefer to be in areas where they're not constantly getting bombarded with baits. Now let's back up a second real quick. There's a couple scenarios when the fish do not need to be or have to be offshore. The most important scenario is if you just flat out do not have a lot of good offshore cover and structure. You've got a lake that maxes out at 6, 7, 8 feet deep, and there's a ton of docks, there's riprap, there's laydowns, and there's just a featureless bottom out offshore. That's when some fish will be shallow. Situation number 2, the fish need to move up shallow to spawn. Every spring it happens, the fish biologically have to move up. Now that's not to say the fish can't be offshore right before then and just slide up at the last second to spawn, but the fish literally have to go shallow to spawn in the spring. Third time they can be shallow is rising water, flooded water, and muddy water, not specifically muddy water because you can catch them offshore in off-colored water, but when the water's coming up and it has a lot of new vegetation in the water, the fish are generally gonna be shallow. Fourth time you can find them shallow is later in the summer, getting close to right now when the oxygen levels get super depleted. You have a thermocline you can see on your graph, and those fish have to be at or above the thermocline. There just flat out isn't enough oxygen for them to live in that deep water, and so they move up to the banks or whatever shallow cover is available. Fifth scenario, when fish could be up shallow, would be current. And I'm not talking like TVA ledge current, I'm talking actual river current where you're fishing a river that's kind of featureless. In the middle it's kind of a dugout bowl, but all the good habitat once again is up on the bank. The fish position on the current breaks, and that's, I mean, it's river fishing 101. And last but not least, the time when you could win potentially up shallow would be when you have an abundance of bait fish up shallow, whether that be in the fall when the shad all move to the back of the creeks, or if there's every bluegill, sunfish, brim, I guess we'll kind of categorize them as, is up shallow bedding, which in that case, a lot of times we're still fishing out offshore in 8 to 12 feet of water off the edge of those beds, but I digress. Now, while I just told you guys all the different ways you could win a tournament up shallow, those scenarios, none of them apply to what we're doing right here. It's not the spring, so they're not gonna be spawning. We haven't had rain here ever, it seems like, and it's been like no rain the last month, so there's not gonna be any high rising water. No current in these lakes. We're just a basic little lake right here. Not really any shallow bait fish movements. The bluegill are done spawning. We're not to the fall shad run. There isn't even shad in this lake. The one thing that could come into effect is the low oxygen levels here in August, but as I'm looking at the graph right now, looks like the thermocline's about 10 feet. Deepest part of this lake's about 18 to 20, so the majority or at least half of the lake and a lot of the good spots are gonna be up in or above that thermocline, so that's not really gonna take into effect. Basically, what's going into my mind is we need to find these fish. If we're gonna win this tournament, we have to find them out offshore. One more thing quick before we get started fishing, you're probably asking how we're actually gonna find these offshore spots. Well, one, lake maps help a lot, so look for your nearest contour maps. The problem with the contour maps of this lake, it shows every single rock pile and brush pile. Let me show you what it looks like on the phone right here. Now, while that's a great resource, it gives you an idea of where the cover is on this lake. It's also giving every other single Timmy that has internet access the same available information. So after those first 2 years when the lake gets remodeled or when it gets built or when they have the new cover put into the lake, there is definitely a giant effect on those fish wanting to hold on that cover after they've been fished for repeatedly. They get conditioned to being caught and they just move out offshore. So we're gonna do two different things. We're gonna scan around with the side scan on my boat right now, side imaging. I'm gonna shoot it out 70 to 100 feet to each sides, and I'm flat out gonna look for stuff that's not on the map. I'm gonna leave that map open to show me where those spots are with the rock piles and the brush piles and everything, and I'm flat out gonna look for spots that are not listed on that, because it's spots like that that are gonna help you win the tournament and find those bigger bass that aren't fished for all the time. Because once again, those big fish are smart. They don't get big by being stupid. They want the solitude of being out off the shore and not fished for constantly. And even though fishing offshore can be confusing, it can be a daunting task to many people who haven't done it a lot, the offshore fish are actually easier to catch a lot of times because they don't see every single bait that you have all day long, every day of the year. The second way we're gonna fish for them is to just go out and flat out fish for these fish out offshore. Now, while it helps to have awesome side imaging, down imaging, stuff like that, it's not 100% necessary. You can just go out off some of these points, you can fish some of these ditches that are obvious from the bank, and that's when it's super important to use heavy baits like a heavy Texas rig, a heavy swing head, a heavy jig, or a crankbait to feel what's down there on the bottom, because something else these big offshore fish love to sit on and get grouped up on is hard bottom areas. So we're gonna look for a lot of areas like that. Got some baits tied on. Time for me to get behind the chest camera and stop talking to this, because you guys are probably yelling at me for talking too much on the videos. Okay, let's go catch them. All right, so I just found something that you guys really need to see. on the side scan right here. So I was coming up, I was in the middle of a cove right here, and then I kind of came up to a point, and this point has this brush pile on it right here, and it looks like it might, I don't know, it might have a couple fish in it, but it's kind of hard to tell. But then I got kind of on top of the point, and we got another brush pile up there, of course, but this right here is exactly what you want to see. We got all these shadows right there, which represent fish. I mean, there might be some other stuff down there, like that might be a little tree or a log or something like that, but those are all fish. And so we're gonna turn back around, throw the crankbait at those fish. If they don't eat that, we're gonna try to catch them probably on a dragging bait, like a swing head or a 10-inch worm. But that is a great example of something that's not marked on the map at all that could be amazing. Yeah, it's so weird, these fish are just swiping at my crankbait, which obviously probably means that they're not in a real active feeding mood, or they just want something besides a crankbait. But pre-fishing, this is a super quick way for me to cover water, find aggressive fish, find schools of fish, because a lot of times those schools will react to that crankbait first time through. As opposed to a worm, you might have to drag it 4 or 5 times before they even notice it, especially in this muddy water. So even though we're not catching them, this is definitely a great sign. I've caught them here in this spot before, and I know that when they get here, they're usually good ones because, again, just kind of a higher spot next to some good cover. Not on the map, most importantly. Well, clearly a timing deal, and this is not the right time to be here. But that's okay. Just learned something, that there are groups of bass, and that's probably 10 or 15 fish right there we could see on the Panoptics. Just kind of out, probably chasing bait because he wouldn't hold anything. Oh yeah, that's a good fish too. Big old girl down in that brush pile. How big are you? Ooh, that's a good one. That's the type we're gonna need this weekend. Yeah, look at that fish. That's a freaking fatty. Pitched a little worm in that brush pile. Unfortunately, we're in a spot of the lake that is popular, but at least we were off of it a hair. I'm gonna see how much this girl weighs real quick. 482. Look how short and fat that fish is. God dang, that's a thick girl. Get her back in. Well, like I said, we're fishing next to a spot that is very popular to hit, but that was out of a brush pile that's kind of by the spot, a little bit off the edge, which is something to definitely look for. This spot I know gets hit constantly, so the fact that I got it out of a piece of brush tells me that this is a rock pile that I've seen just get hit constantly over the years, but the fact that I caught it out of a brush pile next to it, you know, kind of tells me that maybe brush is going to be the deal. There we go, there's a cranking fish. He thinks he's big. That or he's in a brush pile or something. Oh God, he's pulling. What do we hook, guys? What do we hook? What do we hook? What do we hook? Daggum donkey, apparently. Jesus, this thing's strong. Oh, we got him kind of on the side of the face. That'll do it. Still, we got a freaking fighter. He's barely hooked too. He's got one of these little triple grip trebles in his jaw. And honestly, I can just flip them in, which is nice. Nice thing about these 6-cent triple grips on the C10. Look at that. Just hanging on by a thread. But that thread was not coming off. Now, tournament day, we're definitely gonna net that little 3 1/4 guy. Not a giant. Felt giant for a second. I got real excited. We're fishing a rock pile. Scanned it. I don't know. This is a big rock pile. It's a very obvious spot. But it's so big that they can get on different parts of it. So potentially if there was a boat fishing one part of it, we could hop on and fish a different part. And there goes my bait. He was apparently right next to a brush pile. There we go. Second cast in a row to that spot. I'm gonna hit spot lock. Just kind
Hold her down here for a second. This one doesn't feel like he's giant or anything like that, but clearly got a little group of active fish. Freaking fighter. We get another side swipe guy? No, just another real solid one. Oh, there he goes. Well, once again, that's why we don't boat flip them in a tournament all the time when we're using treble hook baits. But another 3 3/4 probably. Not a giant one, but I'm thinking this tournament probably going to take about, well, if we get full 25 boat field, probably take 17, 18 pounds to win. We have a 4.8, 3.5, 3 3/4. I don't know, you guys do the math. I'm just going to keep catching. There we go. That one slacked it. That's a big one. That's a better one, I think. Let's see if we can lose him too. Another one, man. I don't know if I got the wrong color on or what, or maybe they're just not wanting to eat it that well. But every single one of these fish is hooked like right in the bottom of their jaw. That's another one that's definitely a little bit better. Maybe close to 4 pounds, 3 3/4 at least. Maybe bigger than that actually. Once again, we'll just let the triple grips do the work. I saw that they were buried right there. Look how fat that fish is. He's down there eating some damn craps or something. All right, we'll get him back. Another guy. A lot of guys right there, right in front of me there. Not as big of a guy, I don't think. That's a solid one though. In the mouth that time. All right, that one's probably only 2 3/4. Fat fish. They're tall and super white colored. I almost want to just sit here and catch all these because it's such a community hole that I doubt we'll even be able to get near it, but this is good stuff. Ooh, that might be a daggone stud. He ate it going the other way. Ah, I didn't think he got it very good. Maybe he just got on the side of his face because he was going sideways the whole time, but that felt like a big old head shakes. Now, like I was talking about a little bit ago, with timing being so important with the offshore bite, timing and conditions are absolutely huge. We're about an hour and 20 minutes later than when we fished those other spots that had fish and they didn't necessarily bite. And now we're, as I get snagged, of course. But now we've moved over to this point and we got wind blowing directly on it. We're a little bit later in the day. Give this fish some more time to kind of position on it. But that kind of goes back to what I was just saying to you guys about how we found fish on those other spots and didn't necessarily catch them. But there'll probably be a time in the day throughout an 8 to 9 hour tournament day where they will eat something. I'm not as impressed by this spot or excited about this one because, like I said, it is a community hole, but who knows, you get a good boat draw, go to somewhere that looks pretty obvious, get started on your limit, and then later in the day, go pick off some of those fish that maybe a lot of guys don't know about. Good God, these fish are angry at that crankbait. That was one of the hardest crankbait bites I've had in a long time. I don't even think he got it in his damn mouth. Is fish freaking blind out here or what? No, got him right in the top of the damn head. That's a long one that's not built very well. Still 3+ pounder, but just long. Why are you eating with your eyeball, bud? That's not gonna feel too good. You guys might be like, wow, he's switching up colors a lot to give him different looks. No, actually, I'm just getting snagged every other cast, so just grabbing whatever's in the box on top. This Cloud 9 series has been such a freaking killer for me this summer that I think it's all about the action and the noise this thing makes. It has one of the wider, oh, that one crushed it. It's got one of the wider, more aggressive actions of any of these deep crankbaits on the market with that big wide bill. Oh, and look at that. We almost hooked ourselves, but we didn't. Anyways, though, this is the 6 cent C10 I'm using. Like I was saying, it has one of the wider bills on the market, which gives it a super wide, aggressive wobble. Nice knocker rattle in there too. And when you get around a group of what appears to be pretty aggressive fish, like we have right here, man, I've been freaking killing them on it this summer. Good God. I thought that was a rock. He ate it so hard. Ooh, that's a better one. That's a better one. This guy didn't miss it. He aimed and had a precise aim on that bait. Look at that fish. That's a good one. Oh, that's a big one, and he gulped it. Look at that thing. Big old girl. It's the biggest fish of the day. Ooh, she got it. That's generally how you want to eat the C10, guys. Wait till you see this bait. Look at that freaking donk, and look at my damn bait. My damn hook went in and came back out. That is ridiculous. That's a 5-pounder all day. Jesus. They are freaking eating. Oh my God, what was that? They are angry at this thing. That is a biggin. A biggin that was inside of a brush pile for a second. And he's out now, and that is a biggin. Woo. This is the last fish, then we're moving. We're out of here, guys, we're out of here. That is a 10. Just up here thrashing around. Look at that big girl. Woo! Fatty Patty. Dirty girl. Look at that belly on her. That's deserving of a belly pat. You bet. The old lavender citrus seems to be the magic color today. I was getting bit before. I was getting hard bites before. Now they're pretty much gulping it. All of them are getting that front treble. A lot of them anyway are getting that front treble. That's when you freaking know. All right, we're done. We're officially leaving.
Now, a lot of you guys might have watched that right there where I caught a whole bunch of fish in one spot, and you're watching and you're like, you got a tournament coming up, what are you doing? You're burning all your fish. Let me tell you guys how I personally feel about burning fish. If you're not sure what burning fish means, basically burning fish is where you catch the fish before the tournament, and you have to decide how many you want to catch to know if there's fish there, or how many you want to shake off, which basically you feel about it, you just shake your rod until it comes off, or you just flat out leave the spot without knowing its full potential. Now, in a broad sense, I think anglers spend way too much time worrying about burning fish and not thoroughly learning a lake and fishing a spot before the tournament to know what that spot's capable of or what it's not capable of. These fish are constantly changing by, not by just the couple days or by the day, they're changing by the hour, the front that comes through, the sun conditions, the wind conditions, the watercolor conditions. What I'm saying is so much can change that's such an unknown for a future day from now. It's gotten super hard to repeat the same thing twice a lot of times. Now, I wouldn't have sat there and caught 6 or 7 fish on that little school of fish right there, but we are 5 days before the tournament. So much can change. Those fish could go to a different pattern and come back to that pattern 5 or 6 times before then. But what I did learn is there is absolutely some fish on a wind-blown rock pile on a point in that general area that we can probably explore a lot more during that tournament day to see exactly how they're holding on that structure 5 days from now. If it was the day before the tournament or 2 days before the tournament, I probably would have caught 2 or 3 from that group of fish, scanned it a little bit more to see how they were relating, and kind of left it. Unfortunately, it was a rock pile. It's like a 100-yard long rock pile, and a lot of times when those fish are just above or buried in those rocks, it is super hard to see them in that rock pile in your electronics. Another reason I caught a bunch of fish is that's a total community hole. That's a spot where everyone knows about. It's marked on the map. I've seen people fish tournaments there all the time. If it was more of a secret, I also probably wouldn't have sat there and stuck on that spot very long. If you're in a ledge tournament with 400 boats and you think you find a little offshore spot, it's the day before the tournament, and you don't think anyone else is gonna fish it, don't even fish it. Don't even make a cast. Grab those fish, come back to them the next day and see what it holds. But there's been so many times when I've been out fishing and I don't fish a spot very thoroughly, and it turns out being a spot that's just good for 1 fish or 2 fish or maybe no fish in the tournament day because it was only a 1-fish spot that day of practice, and you don't truly learn the spot. This especially holds true for you guys that are going out to fish a tournament on a lake you're not super familiar with. You don't know every spot on the lake. Go out there, spend a day, spend a couple days fishing all different types of cover, all different types of depths, and don't be afraid to go out and stick some. I've had so many days where I just go fish a body of water. Maybe it's the first time I've ever gone to that place and I just want to check on a tournament, and maybe I go flip some brush piles and I catch some 2-pounders, and I flip docks and I catch a bunch of 1 to 3-pounders, and then all of a sudden I go fish a couple rock piles offshore and I catch a 4-pounder or a 5-pounder, and then I go to another one, I catch a 4-pounder. Yeah, I stuck those fish and I'm probably not going to catch them the next day, but that taught me so much more about the winning caliber of fish and where they live on that specific body of water that I'm going to be able to go apply on tournament day and probably catch a lot more fish. Well, that turned into a bit of a whack fest. At that one spot anyways, I went and fished a few more other spots. I ended up catching one solid fish on a piece of offshore brush. Nothing too crazy or exciting about that other than it once again was not listed on the map, so that was great. Hopefully you guys learned a few things in this video about my personal mentality about how to go out and win these local summer tournaments, these smaller lakes. Now, like I said, that's my mentality. It does not need to be your mentality, but it's what works for me. And you guys have been asking repeatedly in these tournament videos what was giving me an edge, what I thought was the most important factor in being more successful in tournaments, and I covered a ton of that in the video today. If you guys have any more questions about anything I said, please drop a comment right down there below. I'm gonna try to reply to as many comments as possible. To be honest, these type of videos are my favorite all-time videos to go out and film because bass fishing and tournament fishing are my true passion, to be able to share that with you guys and explain what I'm doing and the decisions I'm making on the water that I don't always get to talk about in my videos when I'm out there trying to catch fish in a tournament. I can explain myself a little bit better in these videos like this one. If you liked it or it helped you out, please go hit the subscribe button. I would love that. Hit the thumbs up and of course comment down below for an opportunity to be the MFer of the day on the next video. I am heading to another lake right now, and guess what? We're not fishing a tournament at it. We're just gonna do some fun fishing. We're gonna stick as many as possible, and it's a totally different type of lake. Shallow lake, lily pads. There is a couple brush piles, but mostly lily pads. So if you want to know how to break down those types of bodies of water, stay tuned for the next video. But thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to watch this one. I hope it helped you. I'm out of here. Peace.